Hi there. Today we're going to be talking about God in terms of thatness, whatness, and whoness. First, God as that takes us into the topic of existence. I am the birds that perhaps you see in the background at my feeder. I hope they come. They exist as well. So do the trees, the sun that's shining on me. That I exist, that these things exist is easy enough to affirm. We're not yet into any kind of reflection on what we are or what we're supposed to be doing or what's the right way to live and so forth. Get in touch with this simple fact in yourself. The fact simply that you exist. Imagine that your eyes are like windows and someone is looking out of them. Just get in touch with that simple fact. Someone looking out of your eyes. Don't try to reflect on it or break it apart. Who is it? Just that you are here looking. That's what we mean by thatness. And the way we can talk about that is in terms of existence. That I am. Everything we see and know is a particular kind of existence. In traditional language, in Christianity, which is my tradition, we'd say it's a created being. Can we speak of existence apart from created beings? A pure existence. Existence prior to manifestation of all these created beings. That would be getting at the idea of God as that. God as thatness, isness, suchness. God as pure existence. Now, the question is asked then, who created this God? And of course that simply pushes the issue back one step, because if anything created God, then it would be superior to God, it would be God's creator, it would be God, and God would be a creature. So at some point we have to stop this, pushing things back and say, God, in this understanding, is self-subsisting existence. The one whose existence is a pure act, who isn't given existence by anyone or anything else. Okay? So this is a little bit about God as that. And at this level, there's not too much controversy. In fact, there are a number of spiritualities and meditative practices that help us to get in touch with that, our suchness, our thatness, to experience our connection with everything else in the creation, that we are all one and connected at this level of thatness or existence. Let's move on to then the question of God as what. To say that God is one thing, not too terribly controversial unless, you want to quibble about whether we can say there's an existence apart from created things. I think you kind of just have to, at some point, say, okay, we'll go with that if we're going to talk about God. But God as what is more difficult. What is God exactly? What is pure existence? What is that like? Philosophy and metaphysics try to get at this, and we always end up using the language of omni language, unlimited being, unlimited power, unlimited knowledge, unlimited presence. So that's omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, and so forth. Pure existence would necessarily have these kinds of attributes. If God as pure existence is unlimited, then anything that exists that we can see in creatures must in some way resonate with God, and God must possess it in an unlimited way. And metaphysics has done reflecting on this, and of course, again, one can quibble about these things, about whether it's even proper to have that kind of a discussion about God. What do we really know anyway? In most cases, a religious tradition and its theological language and doctrines, its mystics and their experiences shed light on the whatness of God as well. So whatness tells us something about God. Thatness tells us God is. Okay? But then we get into the question of God as who. Is it proper to speak of God as a who? And we begin here with the analogy of knowing another person. We can see, for example, that another is, I'm here, there they are, we have this common existence, but I'm not them and they're not me. We can know something about the other person by observing them and their behavior, things they say, and so forth. But we really do not have access to their interiority, who they are, how they know themselves within, unless they self-disclose to us or to others, and we hear that going on. Then we know them on a different level, not just from the outside. We know something about the inside of the person. And for us, of course, there are levels of risk involved. I trust my wife in self-disclosing a great deal more than I do a stranger, for example. And so the people we trust more, we tend to disclose more too, and that's natural. But what about God? Can we really speak of God as whoness, and can we dare to hope that God would self-disclose in this way, that if there is an interior aspect of God, that we could know something about it? Well, that's in a sense what some religions are asking us to believe. The Judeo-Christian tradition that I'm a part of course Islam is connected with that as well, Hinduism and other world religions, all affirm that God has indeed stepped out of the mystery of thatness and whatness to say something about who God is. Now, we believe this. We can't prove it in the same way that I can prove that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit at certain altitudes, okay? It's not a fact that science can investigate, whether there's a who-ness dimension to God. So we accept this on faith in the same way that we accept another person's self-disclosure in faith. We have to open ourselves to receive it. The who-ness of God engages us in our interiority, inviting us, at least in the understanding of the Judeo-Christian tradition, to a relationship of love. That's the real meaning of the biblical talk of covenant. It's the invitation to belong to God, to be part of a community of belonging to God, and to experience God's love for us in this community and in our lives as individuals as well. Who-ness reveals God as personal, as one with intelligence and intent. Sometimes people talk about God in impersonal terms, and that's sort of what we're doing when we talk about God as thatness. This is not a very personal understanding of God. Thatness doesn't tell us what God wants, for example, what God's intent is, if God has a plan for the universe. It just tells us that God is. Who-ness tells us that God is not a static, impersonal force field that we have to try to accommodate ourselves to. In Christianity, the incarnation in particular, the belief that Jesus is God incarnate, God come to live in human flesh, to take on human life, to live the human life as a human being, is the clearest expression of God's personal nature. As Paul will say, he's the icon or image of the invisible God. So he's God manifest, and as such reveals to us God's inner life through his human life. Now, how would we come to know God as a who? Well, again, I mentioned it earlier. The response is faith. Faith is our yes to God, expressed in the mind and the heart and the will. Faith opens us to receive God's gift of love. Anytime someone tells us they love us, this calls for a response from us. Do we accept it? Do we believe it? Or do we not? Are we going to reject it and say, no, thank you, I'll seek love somewhere else, or I love myself enough, or I have other things to do, and so forth? So that's essentially what faith is about here. It's not so much believing doctrines, although that's part of it. It's part of the way we convey our understanding of God. Faith says, okay, God, I accept that you love me, that you're real, that you care, and I'm willing to open myself up, at least a little bit right now, to let you in. And when we do this, we can come to experience God's love for us, that this love is in fact real, and it transforms us. This knowledge of God is a deeper, more intense knowledge than knowing God as a that or a what. Of course, it's all the same God, but as you can see, it's different ways of knowing God, different ways of connecting with God. If you have interest in this topic and the ministry that I have, look up shalomplace.com. Thank you very much.